every morning is a quiet question from Allah. Who will you be today? The Prophet answered that question with intention, not reaction. He didn't wake up to chaos, to notifications, or to the noise of the world demanding attention. He woke up to remembrance. His first words were not, "What do I have to do?" but "Who am I doing it for?" The difference between a restless day and a peaceful one begins in that first breath after sleep. When you decide whether to live by design or by default, intention is more powerful than time management. You can plan every hour and still feel lost if your why is missing. The Prophet didn't measure his mornings by productivity, but by purpose. His awakening was an act of worship, not an act of urgency. Before his feet touched the ground, his heart was already aligned with heaven. That's what it means to begin with niyyah. To wake up conscious that your life is not random, that every sunrise is a divine appointment. When you wake up with alarm, you're already behind. When you wake up with intention, you're already guided. An alarm is mechanical. It startles the body but forgets the soul. Intention, on the other hand, awakens both. The Prophet began his day by thanking Allah for returning his soul after sleep. That simple gratitude was a spiritual reset, a reminder that life itself is borrowed time and that every day is another chance to live on purpose. To begin with intention is to slow down the first moment of your day. Instead of reacting, you reflect. You speak words that center you, like alhamdulillah. You make dua before you make coffee. You remember before you rush. You remind your heart that it moves for Allah, not for the world. This small pause transforms the energy of your morning from frantic to focused. Intention turns routine into revelation. Brushing your teeth, making wudu, dressing for work. These are no longer empty acts, but sacred motions when done with consciousness. The Prophet showed that even the most ordinary morning habits can become spiritual elevation. If your purpose is pure, it's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with awareness of who you're doing it for. Most of us begin our days reacting to life, answering messages, checking the clock, rushing through prayer. But when you begin with intention, you become proactive in spirit. You choose to lead your day instead of letting it lead you. The Prophet began with alignment, and everything else, his prayers, his interactions, his tasks, flowed naturally from that centered start. Intention is invisible, but its effects are not. You can hear it in the calmness of a voice. You can see it in the way someone handles delays and difficulties. When your morning begins with purpose, your reactions throughout the day are rooted in peace. You stop being easily shaken because your direction was set before the world had a chance to sway. Every sunrise is an opportunity to return to intention. It's not about waking up early. It's about waking up aware that time is sacred, that your life is a trust, and that how you begin determines how you continue. The Prophet modeled this truth daily, that the soul doesn't wake up when the eyes open. It wakes up when the heart remembers why it was created. Fajr is not just the first prayer of the day. It's the foundation of your entire rhythm. It's the moment when the world is still asleep, but the believer is awake, whispering to the Creator. The Prophet treated Fajr not as an obligation to complete, but as an invitation to connect. It was his daily meeting with peace before facing people, with purpose before facing problems, with Allah before facing the world. That's why Fajr isn't just a prayer, it's a positioning of the heart. When you rise for Fajr, you rise above yourself. You leave the comfort of sleep to step into the comfort of faith. The Prophet showed us that discipline is not about denying rest, but redefining it. True rest comes from a soul aligned with its Lord. Those quiet minutes before sunrise hold a secret. The closer you are to Fajr, the less chaos owns your mind. It's not about waking up early, it's about waking up aligned. The light of Fajr breaks the darkness both outside and inside. Every sajda at dawn is a declaration that the night of negligence is over. The Prophet prayed with stillness, knowing that the world begins its motion only after a believer begins with submission. When your forehead touches the ground before the sun rises, you've already conquered the hardest battle, the one against the self. There's something sacred about the silence of Fajr. It's a silence that doesn't demand words but offers clarity. The Prophet would often sit after Fajr, remembering Allah and reflecting. In that stillness, hearts are refueled. The rest of the day may demand your strength, but Fajr gives it meaning. It is the spiritual anchor that keeps you steady when life's winds begin to blow. Fajr reorders your priorities without you realizing it. You begin to move from reaction to reflection, from exhaustion to presence. The Prophet understood that whoever starts their day with Allah never truly loses balance. No matter what comes later, when the first act of your day is prayer, the rest of the day becomes a continuation of worship. It's how you carry barakah into every hour that follows. Many chase productivity, but Fajr gives purpose. It's not about how much you do after waking up. It's about who you become because of how you woke up. The Prophet's mornings began with sincerity, not speed. That sincerity shaped his mercy, his patience, his composure. When your morning begins with remembrance, your reactions throughout the day carry its calmness. The unseen blessings of Fajr cannot be calculated. Doors open, hearts soften, minds clear, not because of what you do, but because of when and how you do it. The Prophet promised light and guidance for those who walk to Fajr, even in darkness. That light isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and deeply transformative. It follows you long after sunrise, illuminating decisions and protecting peace. Fajr is where intention meets surrender. It's the declaration that the day doesn't belong to your schedule, it belongs to your sustainer. The Prophet began his mornings not by controlling time, but by honoring the one who created it. When you pray Fajr with presence, you're not just starting your day, you're setting your direction, your energy, and your heart in the orbit of divine peace. Gratitude was the first heartbeat of the Prophet's morning. Before words, before movement, before stepping into the day, he began with Alhamdulillah. It wasn't a phrase of habit, it was a declaration of awareness. Gratitude reminded him that waking up itself is a gift, that breath is a privilege, and that another sunrise means another chance to serve. Those first moments of thankfulness shaped the energy of his entire day, turning ordinary beginnings into sacred openings. To wake up with gratitude is to shift your focus from what's missing to what's present. The Prophet understood that the soul can't hold both complaint and contentment at the same time. One always silences the other, so he chose contentment. That choice, repeated every morning, trained his heart to see blessings even in difficulty. Gratitude became his lens, filtering every challenge through the truth that Allah's mercy always outweighs hardship. In those early minutes after sleep, the world is quiet and the mind is soft. That is the perfect moment to plant gratitude. The Prophet used that space not to worry about the day ahead, but to acknowledge the one who controls it, saying, Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana. All praise is due to Allah who gave us life after causing us to die. Wasn't just ritual, it was renewal. It was a reminder that life is borrowed, and every morning is an undeserved return. Gratitude in the first minutes rewires the soul for the rest of the day. When your first thought is praise, your next actions naturally flow with purpose. The Prophet showed that gratitude is not a reaction to receiving what we want, but a recognition of already having what we need. That perspective turns the simplest acts, drinking water, breathing air, seeing light, into opportunities for remembrance. A grateful heart is a protected heart. The Prophet taught that when we thank Allah, we are promised increase, not just in material things, but in peace, clarity, and resilience. Gratitude builds a shield around the mind, keeping anxiety from becoming the loudest voice. The one who starts the day with Alhamdulillah is harder to shake because their focus is anchored in abundance, not absence. Gratitude also reshapes how you treat others. When you wake up thankful, you don't walk through the day entitled. You walk through it generous. The Prophet's thankfulness flowed into kindness. His words softened, his patience deepened, his smile became a reflection of inner contentment. Gratitude doesn't just change how you see Allah, it changes how others experience you. The first few minutes after waking are spiritual soil. Whatever you plant there grows throughout the day. The Prophet planted remembrance and gratitude because he knew that every emotion, every reaction, every decision grows from that seed. When your morning starts with complaint, your day leans towards stress. When it starts with shukr, it leans towards serenity. Gratitude in that way is not just an emotion, it's an ecosystem for peace. Every believer has the same sunrise, but not the same sight. Gratitude changes how you see the light. The Prophet ﷺ every dawn as a personal gift from his Lord. Another day to worship, to serve, to love, to forgive. When your heart wakes up saying thank you, it stops chasing fulfillment and starts living it. Gratitude in the first minutes doesn't just change the morning, it changes the meaning of being alive. For the Prophet, cleanliness was not about appearance, it was about alignment. Every act of purification was an act of preparation to meet Allah. Before prayer, he performed wudu with calmness, awareness, and reverence, as if washing not just his limbs but his distractions. Cleanliness was never just hygiene, it was humility. It was his way of saying, I am ready to stand before my Creator. What many treat as ritual, he lived as relationship when you view cleanliness as worship. Even the smallest act becomes sacred. Washing your hands, brushing your teeth, wearing clean clothes. These are no longer mundane habits, but reflections of inner order. The Prophet taught that Allah is beautiful and loves beauty, and that beauty begins with purity. He connected external cleanliness to internal clarity. A clean space mirrors a clean heart, and a clean heart attracts divine presence. The process of wudu itself is a spiritual dialogue. Each drop of water carries away more than dust. It carries away the residue of heedlessness. The Prophet said that sins fall from the body with the last drop of water. That's why he approached wudu with serenity, because it wasn't just about cleanliness, it was about renewal. Every rinse was a reminder that Allah allows us to begin again. Even after we've stumbled, cleanliness was part of his daily rhythm, not an occasional effort. His garments were neat, his breath was pleasant, his surroundings organized. It was not vanity, it was dignity. The Prophet understood that how you maintain your outer world reflects how you honor your inner one. Cleanliness was a silent form of gratitude, a way of respecting the body and the blessings entrusted to it. When life feels cluttered, often the heart is too. The Prophet modeled that clarity begins with purification. When he instructed his companions to keep their homes and paths clean, he was teaching more than sanitation. He was teaching mindfulness. A believer who tidies their environment is also tidying their thoughts, creating space for peace to enter. Cleanliness is not about control. It's about readiness to receive. Even his worship was connected to cleanliness in timing and form. He would not rush into prayer without it. He emphasized that the key to prayer is purification, that the quality of our worship is deeply tied to the state of our body and mind when we enter it. Cleanliness was the doorway to khushu, the deep focus that turns prayer into a true meeting with Allah. To treat cleanliness as routine is to miss its meaning. Routine seeks completion, worship seeks connection. The Prophet transformed what people consider small, rinsing the mouth, trimming nails, wearing perfume, into acts of devotion. These gestures reminded him that every moment is an opportunity to honor the one who created him in the best form. Cleanliness, in his example, was not separate from spirituality, it was its reflection. The Prophet showed that. A clean heart expresses itself through a clean life. Every time he purified himself, he was quietly reminding his followers that worship begins long before the prayer. It begins when you prepare your body, calm your mind, and ready your soul for the sacred encounter. The Prophet began his mornings in quiet long before the noise of the world awoke. He understood that silence is not emptiness, it is preparation. In those early hours, he didn't rush toward the day. He let the day approach him slowly through remembrance, reflection, and calm. The discipline of a quiet morning was his secret to lasting peace. It was in the stillness that his heart received clarity and his purpose found direction. Silence was his teacher. Before he spoke to anyone, he listened to the silence around him, and within him, that quiet allowed him to hear what most people miss. The whispers of the heart, the lessons of patience, the call of the soul. He knew that the more you fill your mornings with noise, the less you hear what truly matters. A quiet morning isn't about isolation, it's about attunement. Aligning yourself with what is real before the distractions begin. In stillness, the prophet found strength. His calm was not passive, it was powerful. It gave him control over his reactions and his energy. When the day brought challenges, he faced them from a place of centeredness already established at dawn. This discipline of quiet was not a luxury, it was a necessity. It kept his emotions balanced, his words measured, and his decisions wise. Most people wake up to rush, but he woke up to remember. His mornings were not defined by movement, but by meaning. The time after Fajr, when the world is light yet still gentle, became a sacred space for reflection and dua. In those moments, he connected deeply with Allah before connecting with people. The discipline of quiet mornings gave him spiritual stamina for the noise that followed. Quiet mornings are a form of self-respect. They show that you value your peace more than your pace. The prophet never let the urgency of tasks steal the serenity of beginnings. He took time to center himself, to prepare inwardly before stepping outwardly. That rhythm created a life of balance, movement rooted in mindfulness, action flowing from awareness. In silence, you see more clearly. You notice blessings you overlook in busyness, the coolness of air, the softness of light, the gift of breath. The prophet cherished these subtle moments because they reflected the mercy of the Creator. His stillness wasn't an escape from responsibility, but a way to approach it with gratitude. He knew that a heart that starts the day in peace carries that peace into every encounter. Discipline means doing what nourishes you even when you don't feel like it. The prophet practiced quiet mornings consistently, even during times of difficulty. He didn't wait for peace to arrive. He created it through presence. That is the essence of discipline, showing up for your soul before the world demands anything from you. His example teaches that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of sincerity. A quiet morning builds an inner foundation that no external noise can shake. The prophet showed that tranquility is not found in avoiding life's noise, but in mastering how you begin. His mornings were proof that silence is strength, that reflection is resilience, and that the best preparation for a loud world is a heart trained in stillness. The prophet began his mornings not by asking what he needed, but by looking for who might need him. Service was not an interruption to his day. It was the essence of it. Before he sought comfort, he offered compassion. Before he asked for provision, he gave generosity. His mornings reflected a profound truth. The one who serves others never loses, because in giving, the heart finds what it was seeking all along. To serve before you seek is to reorder the priorities of the soul. Most people begin the day chasing success, approval, recognition. The prophet began his day contributing. His satisfaction did not depend on what he received, but on what he offered. He showed that fulfillment is not something you hunt. It is something you create through service. When you make someone's life lighter, you make your own heart brighter. Service is a form of remembrance. Every act of kindness is a silent dhikr, a way of saying, Ya Allah, I remember you by being who you love. The prophet's service was not limited to grand gestures. It was in the details, helping with household chores, feeding the hungry, greeting people with warmth. In those simple acts, he taught that the most spiritual people are often the most practical in kindness. The beauty of serving before seeking is that it breaks the illusion of self-centeredness. The prophet lived among his people, not above them. He did not wait to be served. He served willingly. His humility was not weakness, but wisdom. He knew that real power is found in lifting others, not in sitting higher than them. When you serve, you connect to the heart of humanity, and through it, to the Creator. The mornings of the prophet were filled with giving because he knew giving invites barakah. When you begin the day by helping, sharing, or even praying for someone else, you unlock divine favor that no effort of selfishness could ever earn. The act of serving softens the heart and cleanses the intention. It shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from I need more to I already have enough to give. And our serving before seeking also protects the soul from entitlement. When you start your day with service, you begin it with humility. The Prophet reminded his followers that the best among them are those who are most beneficial to others. He lived that truth, helping the weak, visiting the sick, and comforting the grieving. In a world that teaches us to take first, he modeled the blessing of giving first. Service gives your day direction. When you wake up asking, how can I help? Instead of what can I get? You walk through life lighter. You start to see needs instead of complaints, opportunities instead of obstacles. The Prophet showed that true leadership begins with servanthood, that greatness is not in being above people, but among them, lifting them closer to hope. Every act of service, no matter how small, echoes far beyond the moment. The Prophet's kindness was not transactional, it was transformational. His mornings remind us that the heart grows richer the more it gives, that barakah lives in generosity, and that those who serve before they seek never walk alone, because Allah himself supports those who support others. The Prophet built his life on consistency, not intensity. He understood that faith isn't proven in bursts of emotion, but in the quiet repetition of devotion. His mornings, his prayers, his habits, all were steady, rhythmic, and intentional. He showed that the soul grows not through dramatic effort, but through disciplined continuity. The strength of a believer is not measured by how high they rise in one moment, but by how faithfully they walk step after step without giving up. Intensity excites, but consistency transforms. Many begin with fire, but fade with fatigue. The Prophet never rushed his growth. He nurtured it. His worship was sustainable because it was balanced. Small actions done regularly with sincerity. He taught that Allah loves deeds that are consistent, even if they are few. That love is found in the steady heartbeat of faith, not in the occasional surge of passion. Consistency is a form of honesty. It reveals whether your commitment is real or just emotional. The Prophet didn't pray deeply one day and neglect it the next. He prayed with presence every day. His followers witnessed that faithfulness and learned that the secret to lasting strength is not in doing more, but in doing what matters. Again and again, even when no one is watching, the beauty of consistency is that it humbles you. It teaches patience with the process. The Prophet knew that hearts are molded slowly, that true transformation requires time. He didn't demand perfection from his companions. He encouraged persistence. Every small, sincere action was a brick in the structure of their faith. Consistency turns intention into identity until goodness becomes your nature, not just your effort. Intensity often seeks recognition. Consistency seeks connection. The Prophet's devotion was private before it was public. His prayers in the night, his morning dhikr, his gentle routine, all were unseen acts that built a seen legacy. He never needed to prove his faith because he lived it quietly, daily. That quiet repetition became his power, the kind of power that doesn't burn out because it burns steadily. The discipline of consistency also guards you from spiritual exhaustion. When your worship, work, or self-growth depends only on bursts of motivation, it collapses when emotions fade. The Prophet built habits that didn't rely on mood. They relied on meaning. His mornings were anchored in remembrance, not because he felt inspired every time, but because he knew it was right every time. That's what turns routine into devotion. Consistency brings barakah because it invites stability. The Prophet's companions learned from him that Allah blesses what is done with continuity. A believer who prays 2 raka'at every dawn with sincerity may surpass one who prays 10 occasionally without presence. It's not the quantity, but the constancy that carries divine favor. Each repeated act reinforces the heart's alignment with Allah. To live consistently is to live truthfully. It means showing up for Allah on the ordinary days, not just the extraordinary ones. The Prophet embodied this, the same calmness in ease and hardship, the same worship in solitude and crowd, the same gentleness in morning and night. He taught that real strength is not the speed of change, but the steadfastness of commitment, the quiet promise to keep returning. No matter how small the step, the Prophet did not rush from prayer into the noise of the world. After Fajr, he sat in remembrance, allowing his heart to settle before his body moved. Reflection was the bridge between worship and work. It was his way of absorbing peace before engaging with people, of grounding himself in purpose before facing responsibility. In that quiet space, he reminded himself that every action that day was an extension of his connection to Allah. Reflection is not the absence of activity, it is the alignment of intention. The Prophet reflected to renew his focus, to make sure his outer movement would follow his inner direction. He knew that without reflection, even good deeds can lose meaning, becoming empty motions without soul. His mornings were designed to center the heart so that the day would flow with awareness rather than distraction. In reflection, he found clarity. The Prophet didn't start his day by planning outcomes, he started by anchoring his mindset. That reflection turned uncertainty into trust. He didn't need to know how the day would unfold, because he began it knowing who controlled it. His peace didn't depend on predictability, it depended on proximity, how close his heart was to Allah. Reflection was the quiet conversation that prepared him for every public challenge. Morning reflection is the believer's mirror. It reveals what the night concealed, your state of faith, your emotional balance, your hidden thoughts. The Prophet used those moments not to criticize himself, but to realign. He looked inward with mercy, not harshness, because he knew that Allah loves hearts that seek sincerity more than perfection. Reflection was his way of checking his direction before the day carried him away. When you pause to reflect after worship, you extend the impact of that worship into the rest of your day. The Prophet's reflection after Fajr was not time lost, it was time invested. In that silence, his mind became calm, his heart became soft, and his purpose became clear. Reflection gave depth to his gratitude and weight to his actions. It turned his mornings into moments of guidance, not just routine. Reflection also deepens remembrance. The Prophet didn't simply recite dhikr, he pondered its meaning. Every word of praise was an opportunity to feel the reality of Allah's presence. Reflection transformed dhikr from repetition into revelation. It kept his remembrance alive and personal, allowing faith to move from the tongue to the heart, and from the heart into daily life. The Prophet modeled that reflection is a form of worship itself. Sitting in silence, remembering Allah, and observing one's thoughts is not idleness, it is spiritual discipline. It trains the believer to act with awareness, to speak with purpose, to live with gratitude. The more he reflected, the more his actions reflected divine character, patience, humility, mercy, and wisdom. Reflection purified his intentions before the day tested them. Ending the morning with reflection completes the circle of spiritual rhythm. Waking with gratitude, praying with presence, serving with love, and pausing with awareness. The Prophet's mornings remind us that reflection is not a luxury, but a necessity for the soul. It's how you ensure that your day doesn't just pass, but progresses, that your actions come from consciousness, and that your peace remains anchored long after the dawn.